Ladies and gentlemen, a truly, totally event has occurred. We have passed 500 listeners. You all rock. You do indeed. Alright, yes, nerves should be kicking in right now. Never mind, I've drank far too much for that to even happen. So, yes, the rest of the show should be done in a slightly slurred but no less coherent manner. Honest. I like that pun. Right, okay. Yes. Sounds of rap in the forums, MC Hammer, and then House of Pain. And for some reason that was not enough to scare you away. I may have to end the show on something really vicious. We shall see. Another 20 minutes or so left of the show, so back to working as intended. Do we have any more replies to working as intended? The answer is yes, we do. So let's get on with it. Iron Warrior wants some more mid-level instances, like a UBRS, but for level 40s and such. Yep, that is a reasonable way of looking at it. You have to note at this point that there are no 15-man level 40 instances. There are no larger, in fact, than 5. You don't need to do any of these instances in more than 5 mans, because they're not hard enough to justify it. Perhaps a larger instance would introduce people to the concept of larger raiding, and maybe make people better raiders in the first place. Alright. Tyler Pugilis, also known as Tyler or Pug of the Bug. I would enjoy more large one-part dungeons rather than many split-up instances. I would like to see more competitive instancing, such as 2 groups are tracked in the game and whoever gets to the boss first gains the drop. Ooh, now that's an interesting idea. I've never thought of that one before. This would create more of a fun, not so much downtime instancing. Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. I like that. Clawhammer has a comment on solo instancing. He wouldn't go with that. Well, it'll either be too long or too short, so everyone's getting lots and lots of blue stuff, plus it might put some pressure on the server that would have, because of so many people going at once. And again, it's unbalanced. I kind of doubt that the devs would want to go and make such a huge dungeon for each and every class. And again, people might get too many items from it. Maybe, but then again, that's the point of progressive quests. Maybe we would have to go in there several times, and the drop rate wouldn't be that good. Possibly. Yeah, that's one Clawhammer. Now, let's see. Alright, Lars Nomanseth, also known as Like from the Defiance Brotherhood. Now, his suggestion to add new content. Add some more new low-level instances. The game hasn't seen anything new for non-level 60s since Moradin. Now, for end-game content, more 5 people instances, harder ones, tougher than Dire Maul. The only thing people who are in a guild that have completed MC and Black Doom Lair. So, okay, so basically what he's saying is that he wants 5-man instances for people who have finished MC and Blackwing Lair, so seriously tough stuff. So everyone is going to have to be fully geared up and totally in command of their class. Not a bad idea. Now, when you do have epic items, Stratum, Dire Maul and Skolomans don't give you a challenge at all. And there's no fat loot that you would want, so why bother? A really hard 5-man instance designed for people with experience in the game and good loot would be great. Not a bad idea at all. A good way of seeing things go. So, let's see. Any others? Nope, there's just a whole load of stuff. Complaint. Excellent. Okay, I'll read this out. We have a complaint, folks. This happens from time to time. It's not exactly hate mail, but, yeah. The only complaint I have about the show is the obvious spite towards paladins. I don't like paladins. It's that simple. Let me put it this way. I don't have any particular objection to people playing them, but it's sort of like the small, runty, spotty kid in the class. You know, they should expect to be bullied throughout their life for playing paladin. No, I've got no problem with paladins at all. I just find the concept, some of the things they've done with paladins recently to be a little silly, on the basis that it's supposed to be a very defensive class, and yet they've given them the Hammer of Roffle, which is the gank button. So I can go up to someone, press that button, and they die from a range. Now, I find that idea to be completely ridiculous. Now, whereas Execute, you have to actually be up close and personal to do it, and you require rage. Hammer of Roffle, just press that. Oh, he's dead. Brilliant. But yeah, I think I'd have to say that there are people who ruin classes for others. Rogues, for instance. While I don't like rogues, and I find it irritating that they can two-shot me as a cloth wearer, and I have no defense against it, the main problem with rogues is the fact that some of the people who play them are really rather stupid. And they're wankers. Again, it's the same with paladins. It's the same with shamans. It's the same with every class. And you're going to get more spite inevitably towards things like paladins and shamans because the grass is always greener on the other side. And in this respect, if one side doesn't have it, they will inevitably say that because the other side have it, they're imbe. Now, I think paladins and shamans could use some work. I don't think they're complete classes in the way that other classes, say the mage is, in my opinion, a complete class. There's nothing that really needs to be done to the mage. Every tree is useful. Every tree has talents which should be there, and probably shouldn't be in another tree. They are a very well-rounded class. They are the glass cannon. They are playing as intended. And there's, I think, to be honest, the evidence of that is the fact that they haven't changed mages in the past few patches. They've done nothing to them other than bug fix. They have not nerfed or buffed anything. So, yes. Mages are a complete class, and paladins and shamans aren't. For instance, there was a suggestion made by one of my guildmates that the trees for a paladin, the talent trees, need a major reworking. Perhaps they might need a fourth tree. Now, while I disagree with the whole idea of the fourth tree, I do agree with the fact that some of it seems a little bit silly. For instance, Resto. You would think that a Manatide totem would be in the enhancement tree, and any other tree which buffs up and gives you other totems. But it isn't. It's at the end of the Resto tree, which is illogical in some respects, because, really, Resto is a healing tree, and it's got nothing to do with things like enhancement and all that sort of thing. Now, I don't know the shaman trees at all. I don't play a shaman. It may not even be called enhancement. I might be talking out of my arse. I'll go and try and find that out, and find out just what exactly I'm talking about. But the principle is the same. There's stuff which shouldn't be in the tree it's actually in, and yet it is. It shouldn't be there. And again, it is. So, what can be done? Reworking. We've seen it already. It's happening. And it will continue to happen. Warlocks have already been reworked, in my opinion in a somewhat half-arsed kind of fashion. They should be reworked in a more complete way. Warriors have been reworked again in the same kind of thing. Whereas the Hunter has had a complete reworking, and the Druid is going to have a massive reworking. Absolutely massive. No two ways about that. So, is that the way to go with, say, the Shaman and the Paladin? Now, what I said earlier, to make an omelette you have to break a few eggs, is the same thing. You may actually have to underpower or overpower a class briefly in order to fix it. Just because, take for example a Warlock, its ridiculous critting ability is getting changed. Now, many Warlocks would argue that their class is underpowered in respect, but people say the Warlock is overpowered because of that specific ability. That doesn't necessarily make them overpowered, it just means that it's a broken class that needs to be corrected. The ridiculous ability of crits does not make them a generally imba class because it happens so rarely. Whereas, yes, you may be able to one-shot a warrior at some point. It is not guaranteed. No, far from it. It is not at all. So, to make an omelette, you have to break a few eggs. To fix a broken class, you may have to sort out its only redeeming feature. You may, for one patch, have a class which is totally unplayable. But at the end of the day, it has to be done. The more changes you make to a class in one go, the more chance you have of getting an imbalance, especially if you play the nerf and buff game, or a double nerf and a double buff. This has happened in many, many, many games before, and it will continue to happen if Blizzard aren't careful. And they are, at this point, being reasonably careful. Except for complete reworks, which I would agree with on the basis that if you want to do something right, do it properly. Either you change one element per patch, or you change the entire thing. You don't go halfway and say buff and nerf a whole bunch of stuff. It's not a rework, it becomes a total mess, and it's not what you want. And again, back to what I was saying, with stuff like the Paladin and the Shaman, each side claims that these classes are imbalanced. The other side claims that, oh, learn to play a class noob. It's going to happen. And what you get is a skewed perspective on how the class is supposed to be. When anyone suggests a reworking of, say, the Shaman, as we saw, one of my guildies suggested a reworking and did a very, very well-written post and invited comments. You know what the comments were? Learn to play your class, noob. OMG, he's asking for a buff for shamans. You noob. That's the kind of response you get on the WoW forums, because it's full of twats. Really that simple. However, if you're going to fix the shaman, you're going to have to do something to it. Assuming you think the shaman needs fixing at all. I'm ambivalent. I don't actually care. I don't play a shaman. I don't see this imbalance. But then again, paladins don't see an imbalance either. The problem that you really have with the class is the more extreme the ability you make, the more chance people are going to scream nerf. Scream, Imber, you can't do this. It's totally Imber. Because we can do this. Well, you can do this and we can't. That's Imber, apparently. Oh, homie says. Is it Imber? No. It's simply different. And unless you want every class to languish in total and complete mediocrity, then that's what you're going to have to avoid. Screaming nerf, screaming Imber on classes which have abilities which are different to yours. For instance, the rogue relies on stealth, yeah? That's fine. Now, my personal opinion of the rogue is that they should not be able to two-shot things from stealth before I can react. But then again, that's my perspective as a cloth wearer. I'm sure a warrior thinks of me. He should not be able to slow me down so that I can't get a single hit on him, which often happens if I go one-on-one with a warrior. A warrior doesn't stand a hope in hell. Unless I make a mistake, that warrior is not going to kill me, because I won't let it hit me. It's exactly the same reason that I can kite 61 elite demons in bloody Dark Whisper Gorge. It's the same principle. That's my ability as a class. Now, the warrior can no doubt kick the crap out of a rogue, as we're well aware. And a rogue probably thinks that's Imber. And every class is going to have this thing. Hard counters, and people, they can hard counter. Is it fair? Yeah. Because, as we're seeing, WoW is not about solo PvP, and it is moving towards team-based PvP, and that's why Battlegrounds are in the first place. That's why you don't have 1v1. 1v1 is if you come across someone in the wild somewhere, and usually if you do that, one of you is going to be in an advantage from the start, because in general, when that happens, someone is either weak, lower level than you, engaged with a mob, or perhaps didn't see you, and you have the inherent advantage. You can't balance the game based on that. It can't work. What you can do is balance the game on the idea of team-based player versus player and hard counters. Yeah, I can't beat this class. Say, I can't beat a warlock with a fell hunter out. But my warrior friend could. I can't beat a shadow priest. But my rogue friend can. That kind of thing. That's just examples pulled off the top of my head. I don't care if a rogue can beat a shadow priest, whatever. It doesn't make any difference to me. The fact is, someone can. Someone out there can beat them. And if they can, I want them in my group. And I think that is the way to go. And that is the way that we should be balancing World of Warcraft. Okay. Some of you may be aware of a feature we do called Nubcake News. Now, I decided today to give you a bit of a nostalgia trip. No, honestly, this has got nothing to do with the fact that I've got writer's block and couldn't think of anything to do for Nubcake News. I'm going to play the first ever Nubcake News. For those who haven't tuned into the show before, and I know that's a lot of you, and for those who maybe tuned in back in the mists of time, bearing in mind the Blue Please, I believe it's over 20 shows old now. So here is the very first Nubcake News. This is a satirical and sarcasm warning. This is not meant to be taken seriously. All those who are offended by satire, sarcasm, irony, and all those crazy other British moon things, please tune out now, because this is Nubcake News. Welcome to this week's Nubcake News. Coming up later in the programme, we have a special on power levelling for the mentally infirm, and we'll be announcing the winner of our competition to win an ounce of pure, uncut common sense. But first, players were shocked and saddened today. Upon logging onto their respective PvP servers, they were faced with the possibility of an abhorrent and evil practice known as player killing. This murderous and sickening charade is being carried out across Azeroth as both Horde and Alliance alike drop their skipping ropes and flower pressing kits and pick up their weapons. All over the world can be heard the screams of the dying and the metallic clash of blades. Millicent Stinkbeard of the Dwarven Mothers against Azerothian violence had this to say.
This disgusting practice is contrary to everything World of Warcraft stands for. How can anyone possibly expect to get some good wholesome power levelling when players are actually attacking other players? The very thought is horrific. Just this morning, a close family friend was found dead after running through a contested area on his own. This practice was usually completely safe, but now look. The murderous rampage, the horror. How dare the Horde attack Alliance players? It's unthinkable.
Upon hearing this, the Blizzard president, Ralph What's-His-Face, issued the following statement. This sudden outbreak of violence has been prompted by a programming bug known as the Honor System. However, this Honor System is part of a deeper problem known as player versus player, in which the game code mistakenly allows Horde and Alliance players to attack and even sometimes kill each other. We're looking into this as our utmost priority. All current projects, including the Orgrimmar Maypole and Morris Dancing Festival and the Ironforge Pansy Show, have been put on hold until this crisis can be resolved. We apologise to any player who has been adversely affected by this and understand that none of our customers should have to suffer any form of assault or harm while power grinding mobs in contested territory. Despite this statement, however, the practice of player killing in Azeroth appears to be continuing, and players are blaming Blizzard. Advice from the Azerothian Society for Unreasonable Safety is as follows. Contested territory is to be avoided at all times until this player killing issue has been solved and the player versus player bug eliminated. Until that time, it is possible that you may be attacked or even killed by a player of the opposing side. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to leave your city. If possible, cower behind a level 500 boss character for extra safety. There is, however, a glimmer of hope in this seemingly apocalyptic scenario. Apparently, PvE servers are not suffering from this player-killing bug, and this reporter advises you that you create a new character on these bug-free servers immediately. This has been Nubcake News. Good night.